Good evening, guys. I'm Ted Santos, and it is Friday evening, and it is time for a little bit of YouTube and chill. And you guys know what goes on in YouTube and chill. We talk about the intimacy of relationships, talk about love. We love to talk about sex. Indirectly, we are going to address sex in some way, some form. YouTube and chill, I always like to get into a little bit of sex, intimacy. We're going to take a very interesting look at relationships, at family. And for sure, this is going to be from a man's perspective. So join me for this one. YouTube and chill. It's Friday night. Even though the sun is still out, we're going to chill. We're going to chill and talk about intimacy and how men make things happen in this world, and some growing changes that are happening in maybe in areas that people are not really looking. For some reason, I just became warm. I don't know why. Very interesting. Hot topic, huh? So, guys, as you come in, smash that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, this is a great time to hit subscribe and smash that bell. I noticed that YouTube will sometimes automatically unsubscribe people. So if you're not getting my notifications, make sure you're subscribed and make sure that bell is hit so that you get notifications of shows coming up. Share this one, because I think I'm going to give a perspective on surrogacy. So share this with men there are lots of guys who really want to be fathers. They want to have families. They want to raise children. They want to continue their bloodline. They want to pass on their knowledge to the next generation and have some responsibility on how the next generation builds and maintains the world we live in. So what are the possibilities for a man who still wants to be a father? So I looked at two different topics for this show. One is, should men choose surrogate mothers instead of marriage? And the other is marriage the only option for a man to become a great father? So those are the topics, perhaps not widely discussed, and maybe that is something that I do often. I take on topics that are not widely discussed. I know there are a lot of guys who take on it's almost like a Me Too, not in a Me Too in a sense of men being molesting or sexually harassing women, but everyone just says, oh yeah, I want to do that too. So Me Too, I'm going to do that too. And a lot of guys take on topics that everyone else is doing, and they give their own perspective. So I perhaps it's riskier to pave your own path and take on topics that are not always seen as popular in the world of dating and social challenges. And I understand that. So I ask that you share my videos, you subscribe to the channel. I invite you to join me in the conversation through the super chat. And if you'd like to come in and talk about this, great. I've dropped my PayPal and Cash App in here. So would love to have your support. Always appreciate the support that I get from you all financially. So I looked at researching surrogate mothers and what's required and all the technical aspects, the social aspects, the challenges that come with it. But one of the things that I didn't see much of was what's the man's perspective on becoming a surrogate father. So that's actually how I'd like to start this out. So, and I'm saying this in the face of, hell, you've heard me say that marriage in the United States is at all-time lows. It is. They first started keeping records of the amount of marriages in the US in 1865. And right now it's lower than it's ever been since they first started recording it. And still, just because men are not getting married doesn't mean they don't want to be fathers. So what do you do? You know, you've been thinking about being a dad for years, for decades, and you haven't found the right one, or you've met a woman and luckily didn't have children and you divorced. So what is a man to do? The adoption agencies seem to frown on single fathers wanting to have to adopt children, oddly enough. Except the surrogate route seems to embrace men. And I'm going to show you a couple of videos of what it's like, and some of the some real perspectives on men becoming fathers by using a surrogate mother. It's expensive, I'll just tell you that. And there are many things to think about. So, you know, if you're an entrepreneur and you can work from home, there are more and more people working from home and actually generating great incomes by working from home. So it's possible to be what you would call a stay-at-home father and be a single dad. The statistics show single fathers are actually doing very well in raising their children. You don't see the same numbers of children raised by single fathers ending up in prison or juvenile detention centers, and drug addicts and prostitution and all those things. Single fathers are doing a great job. They're doing almost as well as a two-parent household. What's going on? I see you jumping in Instagram. Thanks for joining. Who is that? Septile. So this is for men who have thought about being married and having a family, and are now concerned about, even if you do a prenuptial agreement, you still may end up losing more than you bargained, like more than what marriage is worth, right? So over 70% of divorces are initiated by women. So men are getting nervous about this. You know, you're still expected to be the breadwinner. So what are men doing? Men are looking at surrogate mothers. So for you all just jumping in, the topic is, should men choose surrogate mothers instead of marriage? And men, single fathers, are doing a great job of raising their children. And if you're on Instagram, you'll be able to hear a clip I'm going to share. But I'm going to share a clip of two clips of men who use the surrogate mother, and they're raising their children as a single dad. And you'll get to hear their perspectives, and you'll hear some of the ins and outs and some of the how expensive this can be. So let's see. I'm going to do a screen share.
For many people, having a little one in the house is one of their fondest dreams, but sometimes having a child in the good old-fashioned way just isn't possible. So all this week, we're looking at the ways that people try to have a child. We're calling it Baby Quest. And Carol Costello brings us part 2 in our special series today. This is a real fascinating aspect of this story.
It is. It's becoming like a daddy baby boom out there. I'm not kidding. If you are a single guy and you yearn for fatherhood, there is a way. And a lot of men have found it. Surrogates. It turns out having a baby via surrogate is increasingly popular. The number of men and women using surrogates has quadrupled in 10 years.
Now, just think that since the gay marriage, there are a lot of lesbian couples and two gay men who are using surrogate mothers to have children. But there are also straight heterosexual single men who are doing this also.
With men fast taking the lead.
What? I know, you want to keep walking, don't you?
Under fair use, I'm showing this really just for educational purposes and to critique a perspective of our society, Fair Use Act.
Mama's boy? Forget it. Daddy's rule in Daniel Gurr's world.
Are you okay?
Gurr is just one of many single men opting to have children of their own, on their own. No mom required. It's becoming a daddy baby boom.
Having a biological child was very, very important for me. It's not for everyone, but for me, it just felt like if I was going to do it, that's what I wanted to do.
That's right. Gurr's son is his. He's among a growing number of single men, gay and straight, paying women to carry their children. And it's slowly becoming socially acceptable. Singer Ricky Martin did it. He has twins now. Clay Aiken did it too, with no regrets, telling Entertainment Tonight,
I don't have a problem with diapers, and I don't have a problem with any of that stuff, so nothing bothers me.
the end result is priceless, but expensive. Men can pay well over $100,000 to fertilize a donated egg, then to have it implanted in another woman's womb. It sometimes takes several tries, but it's often the only way for a single man to have a child.
In some ways, in some contexts, there's some suspicion. A man wants to adopt a kid by himself, as though there's some nefarious motive.
Her dress looks really pretty.
Several states either ban or severely restrict adoption by gay individuals and couples. Jeff Walker knows that. He's single and gay. He tried to adopt and failed, so he turned to surrogates, and now he has 2 little girls. His only worry? The lack of a mother figure in their lives.
It's a tough question. I wonder myself. I task myself to make sure that I try to do things that I think a mother would do. I don't know, because I don't have estrogen, what a mother might do in certain circumstances, but I try to be more tactile and to touch more.
Walker's
So interesting. So when interesting to see the perspective of a single father and the level of responsibility and saying, hey, I know my child is better off having a mother in the home, and I don't have estrogen. I don't know how to be a woman. And I can only imagine, he said, I try to be more tactile and touch more. What you don't hear him saying, I'm the mother and the father and I can do it all and don't need a mother. So very interesting when men take on these responsibilities.
mother in his answer often around.
So, and one of the things is, and let's see if I back this up a little bit.
To touch more.
Walker's mother in his answer often around the girls to make sure they experience a woman's touch. As for how these children will react when they understand how they were born, all of the men say the same thing. It'll be just fine.
I'm going to start telling him the truth even before he understands what the truth is, so that as he grows into it, that'll be the natural progression of what his life was.
Here we go. Harris, who is single and straight, had 21-month-old Ben through surrogacy.
I thought getting married was the way to go because I did want a family. But having Ben, I really do feel complete now.
These dads agree the process and the often resulting exhausting task of parenthood is worth it.
I can't believe that I wondered if I should do this or not. I can't imagine not having him in my life.
Now, it is true, single parenthood is a lot more stressful, especially if you're strapped for cash, but there is no definitive, objective study that says children raised by single men fare any worse than kids raised in any single parent home.
This is a newswoman on CNN. She's going to ask an interesting question to a man, her co-host on the news channel. His answer will be interesting.
In other words, dads can be just as nurturing as moms.
Absolutely. Father myself, a couple of kids. I know how important it is for men to have a child in the family.
Would it have been difficult for you, though, as a single father, to, like any single parent, how difficult it is to raise a child?
It wouldn't have been any more difficult than it is for a single mom. It's a challenge for any single parent, and you just got to sort of say that you're going to rise to the challenge and go ahead and do it. But it is interesting how many men are turning to donor egg and then a woman that medical science likes to call a gestational carrier.
They do
this.
They do that for specific reasons. Like they'll go through a book and they'll choose a woman who will donate the egg, and then the egg will be fertilized and the embryo implanted in another woman, and she is the carrier, as you said.
Carrier.
And that's for legal purposes as well as emotional purposes, because you don't want the carrier to suddenly want to keep the
And
child.
there are some states of the nation, like New York, where you can't do that. So these people have to go to other states like Pennsylvania and states like that where they can do it.
That's why it costs upwards of $110,000.
Can be very, very expensive, but you can't put a price tag on children.
So that video was in 2008. So they said $110,000. It has become more expensive than that. So I want to show just one more video of men taking this kind of responsibility. We so underrate the value of a father in the family. And the idea of being a single father and using a surrogate mother shows that parenthood is important, right? So it's great for the child to have both mother and father, but fathers know how to care for and nurture and discipline their children and set up a home that prepares that child for life, which is a major job of parents, is preparing your children for life instead of just throwing them out there and letting them figure it out, and they end up in jail or they end up in the hands of the wrong person. Your daughter ends up in the hands of a pimp or something like that. Your son ends up in a gang looking for a family. So let's look at another video, and this one is more recent, slightly more recent. And they're actually going to talk about the states where it's illegal, not legal to use surrogates. And they'll just offer another perspective. And this one is still from a man's perspective.
I think that my expectation is that families have two parents and you have children. And as I got older, I realized that it probably wasn't going to happen with another person. And so I decided to set up on a journey of having my own family. My name is Nathan Richardson. I'm 43 years old. I live in New York City's West Village. Lived here since 2001 when I moved here from Silicon Valley. I am a tech entrepreneur as well as a stay-at-home dad. Hello. I guess I started when I was around 38, really looking into adoption and the various options. I had hoped that I could adopt from Africa. Unfortunately, it's not an option for single men to adopt from foreign countries. So realizing that I needed to find another option, I started exploring surrogacy. I went with a company called Growing Generations, and within 4 months, I was pregnant.
Ten years ago, single men were about 5% or less of our practice. And today, single men account for over 15%.
So this video was made in 2017. So I didn't look at statistics to see what that number is. So figuring 2007 to 2017, it tripled from 5% to 15%. That's a lot. And I would assume part of that is also part of the gay men being married is probably where a lot of that is happening. And perhaps a lot of straight men may not have thought about it, and then you have to also think about the cost, which they're going to talk about the cost, and then there's some legalities. I'm going to show a couple of videos of women, and one is an example of why you should go through an agency and not try to do this on your own. Yeah. I mean, and you hear about mothers carrying or family members. I don't know how that works. I guess if you use a different woman's egg. But there's an attachment that women have to that child. So as they were explaining in that last clip, they use one woman's egg and then put that into a second woman. So let's hear what else. So it's grown from 5% to 15 in 10 years.
Of our practice, and that number is growing every year. I mean, you may need to get a bigger house. You definitely see more single gay men than we do single straight men. I think partially because a lot of single straight men imagined that they would find a woman someday and have a family the old-fashioned way, whereas single gay men knew from the beginning that their only options were adoption or surrogacy.
And so I guess that's in the face of red pill, MGTOW, black pill, a lot of men, we grew up as boys anticipating that one day we find a wife, we get a girlfriend, turn into a fiance, get married, and raise a family together. We hadn't imagined that women would have been so bent on saying they didn't need a man and having such resentment towards men, and then becoming so uncooperative because they said they didn't need us. So, and then the amount of divorce and how men get hammered. So no one saw this 50 years ago. And maybe they did and didn't care. So a lot of men are just avoiding that. So avoiding marriage does not remove, just like for a woman who still wants to be a mother, and our society has set things up. It's easier. A woman could go to a sperm bank, or she can just lie to a guy and say, I'm on the pill, and not be on the pill and get pregnant, and then just walk off with the child and say, I don't need the guy. A little more difficult for a man to do that. And as this guy was saying, well, at least he wanted to adopt from another country. They don't let single men do that. So our society as a whole, globally, has not embraced single fatherhood in some ways.
For most people going through surrogacy, if they're using an egg donor as well as a surrogate, it's going to be around $150,000. I have many clients from New York, but we have to find their surrogate in a state where surrogacy is legal.
$150,000. And I'll present an article. There are other costs associated with hiring a surrogate mother. It's just not so simple. There's legalities to it, so that she never backs out at some point, and certain guidelines that you as a father can hold a woman to.
There's basically 3 levels of laws around surrogacy. One is states where they have written a specific law about surrogacy, making it legal. 2, there are states which are neutral. So they have no laws for, but no laws against. Then 3, there are laws like the one currently in New York and in New Jersey, where they have banned commercial surrogacy.
My surrogate was in Kansas. I was staying in the surrogate's house with she and her husband, and we went to the hospital at the crack of dawn, and we went into the operating room, and it took seconds. I get emotional talking about it. It was so cool to all of a sudden you just go screaming, and you've got this baby that's being weighed, and that's yours. And then dad arrived 30 seconds later. I think that twins are an incredible blessing. Everyone wonders how you do it, particularly with two babies. And I recently switched from having a 24/7 baby nurse living with me to having a daytime nanny come in. The first night that I was alone, I was up all night. Sort of every time I heard a sound, I was like, "Is that?"
So that's the other part. And yes, this is the guy who says he lives in New York. He says stay-at-home dad. He's the head of a tech company, so I guess he gets to work at home a lot. Except he hired a nurse and a daytime nanny. So that's something to look for as well. So if you're going to hire a surrogate mother and be a single father, if you don't have it that way where you can just stay home and work, or you have your mother or an aunt, a sister, or someone in your family, and I think most people look at that as having a woman. What is it? A manny instead of a male nanny. Most people are looking to have a woman care for, be the caretaker of a child. So that's another expense to consider, and perhaps this is why so many men are not jumping into this so quickly, because there are a lot of expenses associated. $150,000. That's a lot of money.
And I had to get used to the fact that not every sound is the baby waking up. Yours are fun, aren't they, Scout? Ooh, ooh.
Time that our law caught up with the technology that exists. The bill would permit commercial surrogacy contracts to be undertaken in New York State and avail these individuals of the amazing fertility clinics and services that exist here. I think it would lower costs. I think having your network nearby of friendship and family is really important too. And it's an opportunity for a new generation of families to be created.
All right. Can you help Daddy with the page? My name is Michael Warren, and I am a father through surrogacy. It's funny. Family is small. It's just the two of us. And I think I'm an older father. I won't be around forever. So I wanted him to have, someone who shared his background. Friday, we were heading to Cleveland. I'm going to have an embryo transfer for a new gestational carrier in the hopes of having a sibling for Jonas.
So roughly 530,000 single dads are raising 2 or more children. And I predict that number is going to grow.
2 is enough right now.
Your left leg out and you shake it all about. You do the hokey pokey and you do.
I wouldn't change it for a bit. And I think that most people that have gone through surrogacy would say the same thing, that, if they had to do it again, they would do it again and again and again and again.
Okay. Come here. Okay.
So that's a man's perspective on using a surrogate mother. It's one that we rarely see. I've heard guys talk about it, but do we really talk about the men who've actually initiated, who've actually executed that and gone and done it, complete, and they are now engaged in fatherhood? We don't hear that enough, and so we heard some really good stories. These are men who wanted to be fathers. The heterosexual men anticipated being married and it didn't happen. And, we all hear lots of reasons. While I do know there are some very successful heterosexual families out there, and the children are being well raised, and they have a two-parent household, and they're learning from mom and dad. So what do men do when they still want to be a father and they really don't want to risk losing half of their assets, half of their company, I know of a woman who married a guy. She married a guy who, wow. There's a woman who married a guy, and when she met him, he had a 6-bedroom home that he inherited from his parents. His parents died, they left him the house. He's living alone. And what does he do? He meets this beautiful woman. He marries her, and then she divorces him, and she takes the home he inherited from his parents, and she still lives in it. These are things that men do not want to experience, yet they still want to be fathers. And interestingly, is that woman met that guy, and she already had children, and took his home. Hey, thanks, Scout. Yeah, it definitely is one to think about, the Scout. Yep. So thanks. Excellent subject. This is an option I have spoken to my son about, because you have to plan for the upfront money needed, but it's an option to think about. Right. So being actually going through that, and I'm going to pull out an article, and we'll look at this from women who've been surrogate mothers, and it'll help you understand why you want to go through an agency and not just randomly use a woman who could change her mind about this. I mean, you need to have all the legalities in place so that you can mitigate any of the emotional drama that comes with it. And for some women, it may be traumatic to let go of a child they've carried for 9 months. So let's see. So before I do, sure, why not? I'll do the another screen share, another video.
Entire process of when I think about.
Now this is going to be interesting, because women get paid to be a surrogate mother, and some of the women who are surrogate mothers are already married and have at least one child. So, and there's a limit to how many children a woman could have as a surrogate mother. There's a limit to the amount of surrogate pregnancy she can have, and there's also a limit to age on this also. So I'm going to show you a couple here who, what is it like dealing with the couple, where the wife makes a decision to be a surrogate mother, and she has a husband and she has a child.
When I think about the entire process of surrogacy and handing over a baby to somebody that couldn't have one, that is like pure excitement. I think that's another thing that's pretty universal between all of the Surro sisters.
When you have the experience and having helped literally thousands, that makes what we do and the complexity and the challenges worth it.
I'm Jessica Geisinger, and I am 21 weeks along in my journey as a surrogate.
I was a little confused on what she meant by she wanted to be a surrogate.
I remember him being a little like standoffish about it, or just kind of unsure. And then the more I kind of, not that I pried, but I can be like, I'll ask questions about why.
I was very uneducated about what surrogacy was. And as she exposed me to it more, I became more comfortable, I guess you could say.
I got to a certain point in my life where I knew I wanted to have children. I was not in a relationship, but I felt like if it was sort of now or never. My plan had always been to have 2 children, but I was unable then to carry again after my daughter was born. Within probably 3 weeks after my daughter was born, I was back in the clinic saying, what do I do? What are my options? And I hadn't really thought about surrogacy terribly much before I found myself in a position to need to explore it. I had seen it in the news, so I was certainly aware it was an option.
Because celebrities do have these high-profile surrogacy arrangements, whether you're Kim Kardashian, Juliana Rancic, Sarah Jessica Parker, Elton John, it helps to normalize the conversation.
That's interesting. So a lot of celebrities, they've named a few, prefer to hire a surrogate mother as opposed to go through the pregnancy. And there are lots of reasons a woman could, if you're married or you have a girlfriend and she's having challenges keeping a baby and continues to have miscarriages. I mean, there are women out there who, if you met them, you would see them as very healthy, and they're unable to carry a pregnancy to term. So there are many other reasons.
I read about it all over the news and like see how Kim and Kanye for their 3rd child decided to have a surrogate. I've always been interested in starting a family, but the thought of actually being pregnant and giving birth completely horrifies and terrifies me. So it's definitely something that I'd seriously look into one day. I appreciate that it exists for women. But like anything in like modern science, you don't want anything to go too far. It could become like a vanity thing.
It's in the popular press, Modern Family kind of TV shows. So it's not taboo anymore. People are more open to talking about this is our surrogate baby. So we just see the overall trending up of the practice.
Obviously, there's a lot to consider when you're putting your body through something as drastic as being pregnant. Once you've had at least 1 child and you kind of know how pregnancy feels for you, then you kind of get into more like specific details about how your life would change, how it would affect your job, your daily life, your family situation. And I think that as stuff came up in life and I put a what if on if I were being a surrogate, it all just seemed like it would make sense.
Surrogate compensation varies quite a bit, and it varies depending upon a number of factors such as location, whether or not the surrogate has been a surrogate before, whether or not she is carrying twins. But the national average is anywhere from about $30,000 to about $60,000.
You're taking on large money interest. And one of the biggest problems is just getting a handle on how many billions of dollars we're talking about here.
Unfortunately, of the cost of surrogacy, only a small part actually goes to the gestational carrier. And then there's also costs associated with the agency and lawyers and insurance, and it all adds up. But the gestational carrier only gets a portion of that.
In the United States, the legislative sort of landscape, if you will, around surrogacy is a patchwork. When you read the contracts, they're heavily biasing the people with money and not the surrogate.
A lot of the agreement is very, very clear about whose baby this is. There are some parts that are bold-faced and in all caps that pertain to who this child will belong to.
You see, that's a great reason to go through an agency, because they're not, usually you're not signing a 1-page document. You're signing multiple pages, and you're volunteering to release the child and who the child belongs to while you're pregnant. And that has an impact on sort of the ground rules that you can literally impose on a woman. I mean, you won't be with her 24/7, I guess, unless you make those arrangements. But you won't be with her 24/7 to know what she eats and all the things she consumes. But there are legalities in there that if she violates certain things, it's void. The contract is void. So I'll read an article and it goes into detail about how serious they are. It's part of the reason why it's so expensive, because they go through a very strict set of rules and guidelines. And as this woman was just saying, there are sections where it's bold or it's capital letters, and they're making sure that surrogate mother understands this child is not yours. And so you're, as a man, as a single father who wants to raise his child, the last thing you want to do is pay someone and have her believe, well, this is my baby, I can do what I want, and then changes her mind because she feels like she's bonded with it. And so very important. Hey, and the big exclusive, I love your comment. Sounds like she likes being pregnant and having babies. And he just gave up and thought arguing wasn't worth the effort. So I kind of got that impression too. The Scout, the super chat. Thank you, man. Big thank you to you for the super chat. With the content you're providing, I have no problem assisting you to continue your mission, enlightening men and providing options. And I'll pop that up after I show this video. So big thank you for the Scout to you on that. Thanks, Ken. Right. Hey, big exclusive. Yep. Good one. Right. So yes, contracts are very important in this. Relying on verbal promises is not good enough. We know courts don't favor fathers. And even if you make up your own contract and say, hey, whoever, Susan, we know what the deal is here. And at the end, she can just renege on it and say you tricked her, persuade, just like with prenuptial agreements. So but let's hear what else she has to say here.
And that Jess and her husband are making no claims on this child.
You want to answer some questions?
Wait, though, fix your hair.
You want to answer some questions?
Wait, though. And her husband are making, and that child will who this teen to, who in all caps that her teen to, and in all caps that her teen to, who this child will belong to, and that Jess and her husband are making no claims on this child.
You want to answer some questions?
Wait, though, fix your hair. What's in my belly?
A baby.
Can you say that? How does that make you feel?
A necklace with mommy's baby fear.
The big exclusive. I don't know their household, but perhaps she's wearing the pants in that one. So as you said, he didn't want to argue. She likes being pregnant. And pregnant vagina, you hear lots of stories about it. He would benefit from that. Aside from the hormones and depending on, some women go through pregnancy and it's some of women can be very loving and affectionate when they are pregnant. So depends on what kind of woman he is.
Great. The necklace makes mommy's baby feel great.
Yeah.
When the baby's born, the bell goes to the mom, and the mom wears the bell so that the sound reciprocates from in utero, which I don't think I told him that. I don't know. I picked up on that.
There's not a lot that I can do in terms of my space to get ready just yet because it's a small space and we don't have room to bring things in before we need to. I have bought a couple of books for my daughter to try to explain how her life is going to change. I think it's going to be a bit of a shock to her. It's possible that when we get a little bit closer, she'll have more of the wherewithal to understand what's going on. Jess called me at 4:45 a.m. on Tuesday and said she was heading over to the hospital. They were able to wait for me and did a C-section shortly after I arrived. I was fortunate that I was there for the delivery, so I was able to see her actually emerge and to hold her right away. It was nice to be able to do that and to feel that immediate connection.
Just being able to kind of like see her like interact with the baby and stuff like that was definitely like full circle. The kids got to go visit her too, and so kind of for them to be able to see everything like come together and put two and two together, like, oh, this is the baby that mommy was carrying and this is the baby's mommy, and now she gets to take the baby home. I haven't had any, I guess you could call them like weird feelings about like having a baby and then not having a baby to take care of. There's like zero stress of like worrying about how your life is going to change bringing a baby home. I definitely don't expect like constant contact or communication. I'm sure that she'll probably send pictures and updates. I don't know how it will turn out, but I'm open to whatever. I wouldn't feel bad one way or another.
It's been such a great relationship. She has been so wonderful. I would hope that everybody would have a relationship like this if they go through this process. It's been really wonderful.
It's definitely been super rewarding, and I'm totally on board with doing it again. 2 days after I've delivered, but we'll figure that out down the road.
An update, it said recovery is good, and yes, I still feel like a second journey is in my future. A second surrogate mom. I've been pumping and shipping breast milk, so we've continued communication like normal. Interesting.
If you're struggling to start a family because your career
Yeah, thank you for that, Scout. Interesting. It's also a cruel subject. A young boy. It's cruel. It's also cruel to subject a young boy into such a strange family life. Children learn through examples. Look at how confused he looks at his mother being constantly pregnant. And she's ready to do it again, but she can only do that 4 more times. Well, 4 times plus her own. And his mom is trying to give an explanation that the boy clearly doesn't understand. The father doesn't even look like he understands. He's just given up trying to stop her. And at the end of that, she said she's ready to do it again. So, very interesting. There are women who, I guess they like being pregnant, and women say it's really painful. But I'm confused how women say they're doing this for us men, and see how easy they can do this for a stranger, and then just give up the child. What does that say about how we've been told women are innately nurturing? So she can carry this child. She's fed it not only food, but all kinds of other things through herself, and then just gave it away. Is that the innate nurturing that we've been told about? I don't know. maybe women can help us understand this. So let's get let's put a few facts on the board here. Okay. So I'm not going to read this whole article. It's kind of long, except the article is really good. I'll drop it in the description. It's a great article. And the article is in healthline.com, Growing Your Family Through Gestational Surrogacy. And let's see. It says, well, surrogacy can help fill in some of those details when it comes to wanting to have a child. 12 to 15% of couples experiencing infertility issues, as well as for others who want to have biological children and are not in situations. There are many reasons people choose surrogacy. Health issues prevent a woman from getting pregnant or carrying a pregnancy to term. Infertility issues prevent couples from either getting or staying pregnant, like recurrent miscarriages. And that's probably traditionally what a surrogate mother was for, health issues or infertility. But now you add same-sex couples wish to have children. This may be two men, but women also find this option attractive because the egg and resulting embryo from one partner can be transferred and carried by the other partner. Single people want to have biological children. So the types of surrogacy. The term surrogacy is generally used to describe a couple of different scenarios. A gestational carrier carries a pregnancy for an individual or couple using an egg that is not the carrier's. The egg may come from either the intended mother or a donor. So if you were married, your wife may have health problems or may not carry it. So you take her egg and you put it into another woman, and then your sperm is injected. Likewise, sperm may come from an intended father or donor. Pregnancy is achieved through in vitro fertilization. So you can take your sperm and put it in, if you're married, your wife's egg, or you can take your sperm and put it in some other woman's egg and then have a woman carry it. And you could also, a woman can take, I guess, she can take her husband's sperm and carry, or some other man's in vitro fertilization. That's the gestational carrier. A traditional surrogate both donates her own egg and carries a pregnancy for an individual or couple. So that's a woman who is going to actually just use her own natural eggs and have sperm injected and carry it. The pregnancy is usually achieved through intrauterine insemination with sperm from the intended father. Donor sperm may also be used. So for you guys who are single and you wanted to have a child and you use a surrogate mother, you can use your very own sperm and intrauterine insemination. And she carries a child that is of your DNA and hers. So it's your right, it's your DNA and her DNA. So that's a little bit different than the gestational. She's just a host she's literally a host for some other woman's egg in your sperm. The traditional, she's actually using her very own eggs. According to the Southern Surrogacy Agency, gestational carriers are now more common than traditional surrogates. Why is this? Since the traditional surrogate donates her own egg, she is technically also a biological mother of the child. While this can definitely work out just fine, it can create complex legal and emotional issues. In fact, several states actually have laws against traditional surrogacy for these reasons. If you want to find a surrogate, there are agencies where you can do that. Now, criteria for becoming a surrogate: age. Candidates must be between ages 21 and 45 years old. Again, the specific range varies by location. So that, and wow, I guess it depends on the circumstances. 45, that's pretty old. But I've heard of a woman being in her 50s being a surrogate for her son and his wife. But just telling you, 21 to 45, and we would all know 21 to like 33, 34 is going to be the ideal age for a woman to carry, where you reduce the complications she can have. So that's one criteria, is age. Reproductive background. They also have to have carried at least one pregnancy without complications to term, but have fewer than 5 vaginal deliveries and 2 cesarean sections. So if they've had 5 vaginal deliveries, they're out. You can't. There are only so many surrogate pregnancies a woman can have. Lifestyle. Surrogates must live in a supportive home environment as confirmed by a home study. That means they're going to check out where that this woman lives. Drug and alcohol abuse are other considerations. Test. Additionally, potential surrogates must have a mental health screening, a complete physical, including screening for sexually transmitted infections. Intended parents have certain requirements to meet as well. These involve providing complete health histories, having physical exams to ensure they can successfully go through in vitro fertilization, retrieval cycles, screening for infectious diseases, testing for certain genetic diseases that could be passed to the child. Mental health counseling is also recommended to cover things like expectations from surrogacy, addiction, abuse, and other psychological issues. So, how much is it going to cost? The step-by-step, I'll drop the link and you guys can read what the step-by-step it puts it in here. So how much will it cost? The costs associated with surrogate depending on type and where you live. In general, the cost for a gestational carrier may fall between $90,000 and $130,000 when you take into account the compensation, healthcare costs, legal fees, and other situations that may arise. In one of the videos, they said, and that was New York, $150,000. So I guess they're doing general. New York may be more expensive, especially since New York, it's illegal. So they had to deal with other states, Pennsylvania, because even in New Jersey, it's illegal. So they couldn't use New Jersey. So here are some of the base pay is $50,000 for new surrogates and $60,000 for experienced surrogates. So as a woman, you can get paid $50,000 if you're new, $60,000 if you've done this before. There may be additional fees as well. For example, you get $5,000 if the pregnancy results in twins, extra $5,000. You get an extra $10,000 if you have triplets, and you get $3,000 for a cesarean delivery. If you are a man looking to do this, you may incur other costs like monthly allowances, lost wages, health insurance. These are things to think about. Costs may include special circumstances such as canceled intravitreal fertilization cycles, dilation, and curettage, ectopic pregnancy, fetal reduction, and other unexpected situations. Expectant parents will also pay around $1,000 for mental health screenings for themselves, the surrogate, and the surrogate's partner. Criminal background checks for both parties cost between 100 and 400. Medical screenings will depend on recommendations by IVF. Legal costs. There are actually quite a few legal costs involved, from drafting and reviewing a surrogacy contract, $2,500 and $1,000. So drafting $25, reviewing $1,000. To establish parentage, $4,000 to $7,000. To trust account management, $1,250. The general total is somewhere between $8,700 to $11,000. Other costs. This varies by clinic and agencies. As an example, West Coast Surrogacy recommends psychological consulting to its intended parents and surrogate at 90 minutes a month, and after different milestones like embryo transfers. In total, these sessions may cost $2,500. However, this support may or may not be recommended by other agencies. And just what I also mentions is criminal background checks. So this is interesting. So if you want to marry someone, we don't have such stringent guidelines and requirements. But if you want a surrogate mother, man, you get to really lay down the law here. Other possible costs include the surrogate health insurance, could be $25,000, life insurance $500, and hotel stays, travel fees associated with IVF cycles $1,500. Parents may also arrange for private health insurance verification, $275. What about traditional surrogates? Your costs may be lower with traditional surrogacy because there's no IVF involved. The cost of intrauterine is less and tends to have fewer associated medical procedures. And this is interesting. Does health insurance cover any costs? Likely not, but it's complicated. According to the Conceivabilities Agency, around 30% of health insurance plans include verbiage that specifically states it will not cover costs for a woman for surrogacy. Around 5% do provide coverage, but the other 65% are a bit shady on the matter. In short, there are many appointments, procedures, and then the birth itself to think about. You don't want unexpected and costly health insurance bill. Most agencies will help you review the surrogate's health insurance plan to determine coverage. They may also recommend that you purchase outside insurance with the surrogate for the surrogate using comprehensive surrogacy insurance programs through agencies, New Life and ART Risk Associates. So let's see, what else? Legal things to consider. There aren't any federal laws surrounding surrogacy. Instead, the laws that apply depend on the state in which you live. Legal issues may arise when one parent is biologically related to the child and the other isn't, even if the surrogate is not biologically related. Traditional surrogacy, when the surrogate is also the biological mother, can be particularly complicated. Among other issues, you may need to secure what's called a pre-birth order to be listed as a parent on the birth certificate when the baby is born. Some states may not allow this, even if they don't have laws against traditional surrogacy. This means the non-biological parents may need to go through adoption proceedings. And that's interesting. So you may have to file for adoption for your child. Some of the unanticipated issues is the in vitro fertilization doesn't work. It doesn't stick. There's a miscarriage. Like that could be just for any pregnancy, and it also may result in multiples, twins or triplets. There are those. So let's see So the takeaway is, while surrogacy may not always be simple or straightforward, more and more people are choosing this route. In 1999, there were just 727 gestational carrier cycles reported in the United States. In 2013, the number jumped to 3,432, and it continues to climb each year. That's amazing. And you know, with there are many men who really do want to raise families. And so there's another thing to consider. Like in one of the videos I showed, the guy, he had a nurse, a day nurse. He had a nurse and a nanny. So, you know, there are other expenses associated with this. At the same time, if you're looking to really pass your legacy on and prepare your children for life, and you want to be an active dad in your own bloodline and pass that on, this can be an option. You just need to put a budget aside to make this happen. If it's gestational, where you're taking the egg from some woman and putting it into a different woman, and she's just a host carrier, and then you take the child, that's could be anywhere from $90,000 to $150,000 that you'll need to budget for that, and then some of the other incidental costs that go with this, and you really want to make sure you have the legalities handled in this. You would still demand the paternity test to make sure it's your sperm that's in there. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of hands in the pot. Big exclusive. Yep. Not a simple process. And so this is why some people may try to take a shortcut, and yeah, that can have some. Then you may have the court systems with their hand in the pot. And that can be really risky. Let's see. So some women are just doing this. Some women have this as like a job, almost like a business model.
Want to know how to.
I mean, if they're getting paid, you know, $50,000, $60,000 to carry a baby, some women can live off of that. But there's a limit to how many children and how many times can you get pregnant, right? So here's another woman's perspective on this short video. And well, yeah, I won't comment yet, but
13-year-old son. Yeah. What made you? You've got your own 13-year-old son. Yeah. What made you decide that this was something you wanted to do?
It was just something that I was fascinated from early on, and then I thought about for years and spoke about it, intrigued me. And then a documentary came on, and I was watching it at my parents' house, and they said, you know, you're getting on a bit if you want to do it, sort of look into it. So I was at work and Googled surrogacy agencies, and within a year I was pregnant and had twins, and that was it. It was like a whirlwind. It was so quick.
So finding the right people to carry the baby for, I imagine is really important. That's got to be a right blend, a right mix. It's got to work for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, you get sent profiles of people with this agency that I was with, and you know, read about their backgrounds and their stories, and basically, you know, you get to meet them. I think you need to build a relationship with them and stuff. And I mean, surrogacy is based on trust, so you've really got to connect with the people and have a good relationship with them.
How does it work with the agency? What's their job?
Well, the agency that I was with at the time that I met the first couple through, went bust within 6 weeks of us signing the agreement. So we kind of muddled through together, really. And
you continued with it, but
continued with it. It just muddled through, and none of us knew what we were doing, but we got there. And then gradually, as time sort of went on, and I did it again and stuff like that. You know, I had ups and downs with other agencies and stuff, and then decided to start my own and
go it alone.
So the title of this video is "I'm Addicted to Being a Surrogate Mother," and I just read that, you know, you can only do the surrogacy, you know, 4 times plus have your own child. You have to have had a healthy pregnancy already. And so this woman is, you know, what's the deal? I like being pregnant. Can any women who are mothers explain, like, you know, we hear how painful pregnancy is, and women say how they could die, and they're doing a man a favor by becoming pregnant for the man, and you're doing this for the guy. I'm doing this for you. But here this woman is just randomly getting pregnant by, I mean, she's being impregnated in vitro or insemination and just having children because she's addicted to it. She started her own agency. And I wonder about her health in general.
So the bit that I think that I mean, it's obviously to give somebody the gift of a child if they haven't been able to do them. So whatever the reason is an incredible thing to do, no doubt. The first 2 pregnancies, you donated your own eggs. So there is a biological connection. When you hand over those babies, biologically, you are connected.
Yeah.
How difficult is that? How do you do that, especially the first time?
Watch her answer. And guys, if you haven't smashed that like button, smash the like. I dropped my PayPal and Cash App in there. Support is greatly appreciated. But this is part of what concerns me, is her answer to the question. Her eggs were used, which means that the children are half hers, biologically hers. Her DNA. What is it like to give those children away? And she says,
honestly, I'm not the most maternal of people. I love my son with all my heart, but I'm not maternal.
She says, I'm just not the most maternal of people. I love my son, but just not maternal. Love her honesty, though.
Really, and they were never set out for me. The journey never was for me to have another baby. It was always going to be their baby. So in your head, you kind of detach yourself away from it. And, you know, I didn't know how I was going to react, obviously, at the end and stuff. But I've got the best friends and family around me and support. And once you hand the babies over, there's just nothing.
But your body still knows you've just given birth. So your body will go through that process. Like, you know, after you've given birth, there's things that happen in your body. You have the hormones. You know, you're still got a reminder.
Baby blues 2 days later, and you know that passes. But other than that, I mean, I'm in contact with all the couples, and just that's enough and fulfillment enough. Just seeing, you know, them all happy. It's amazing. I can't put it into words.
Yeah. As far as because I know that your son has attended the first meeting actually when he was about 6 years old, wasn't he?
First meeting, he came up as soon as I delivered the twins. Offered one of them a biscuit. And he was about 7 at the time, and then after that, I had the next one at home. And
But these are his, you know, his half siblings.
Yeah, he's aware of all of that now. He wasn't at the time. Now he's 13. He understands more.
Yeah.
But he just.
So the big exclusive. That's interesting. Her son is 13 now, and it'd be interesting, as you were saying, does he really comprehend this? And what are his thoughts? He's just watching his mother pop out babies and then just give them away. I mean, I wonder what the effect is on the child, quite honestly, that she has watching his brother or sister being given away. And it, whether it's traditional and it's her eggs or gestational and it's some other woman's eggs, the boy may not completely comprehend that. So very interesting. And as your question is, what if a woman goes to another country and they have no limits on the amount of babies a woman can have? So if she could get pregnant every year or every 2 years, she could make a living. Yeah, and I guess would have no ceiling on that. And I don't know. The article I read was for the U.S. I don't know if Great Britain has similar guidelines, or if you could go somewhere else, like Asia or something.
He doesn't stop saying how proud he is of me, and he's fascinated by it, and he thinks it's brilliant. He sent me a text on the way to school this morning saying, "I'm proud of you, Mum." And he's like, he's a special little boy. He's a good boy.
And there is a difference. You say it's lovely for the new parents because for the first time with the twins, you had those in hospital, and so there's a limited amount of time that they can be there for the birth and things like that. But you're still the mum, the biological mum. But if you the home birth is an entirely different experience.
Yeah, it was much better. It was much nicer because legally you're not allowed to hand the baby over in hospital and stuff like that. So it's nicer rather than passing the baby over in a car park. And the first night that I had the twins, I stayed in hospital overnight in the room with the couple and with the twins, and it was all a bit overwhelming. Whereas at home, it was just lovely. Like, a couple of hours later, we're all sitting downstairs watching TV, and the couple have to wait 6 hours before they can leave with the baby, just so they can check and map them out and everything. And it was just a nicer experience, really, being at home,
And so, I mean, this is your fourth that you're carrying at the moment. Is this something you want to continue doing? I mean, does it take a toll?
My body lets me.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Does it take a toll on your body?
Yeah, it does a bit. I mean, it is hard work. I mean, I lost quite a lot of weight last year, and then we went through ups and downs to get to where we are. Ectopic, this was a twin pregnancy, it vanished, and it's been ups and downs, but at the same time, it's amazing how a woman's body forgets. Because I mean, even though I've had so many, I still forget, sort of what I went through. And if I could, I'd do it forever. I think my friends and family disown me because of being moany. But
you moan
all the time.
Do you?
Constantly, yeah, all the time.
You're entitled to.
Exactly. So it's perfect. I would carry on. It just depends. I mean, obviously after this one, see what happens.
Do you think about those babies though? If you're lying in bed at night,
I'm in contact with them. They send me pictures, and
do they look like you?
They look like my son. Two of them look like my son.
Is that not
really?
Does that not feel like when you look at them, you just go, God, wow?
Not really. When one of the couples, they come over once a year, and when my son and the little one are playing, it's a bit surreal. But as I said, when you watch them as a family,
it's right.
It's just worth everything to me. It's just amazing.
What's going on, Myth Twist? Good to see you in the house. That video was from across the pond in your neighborhood. Holly Willoughby. So I showed you guys videos. Oh, damn. I was going to show you one, but I didn't see this. I didn't look at this. This is, it says Mary Beth Whitehead, baby M, surrogate mother who fought for custody. I just want to show another perspective of an outcome of this to be aware of. So it's from 4 years ago. I don't know if laws have changed. I didn't see this one. I was going to show another one, how I'm feeling right after giving birth as a surrogate, how emotional the woman was, and just for any guy who's looking to do this, that you make sure the legalities, even though they're talking about all the hands that are in your pockets, right? There's so many, but there's a real side to this. And this may be illustrated better. So I haven't looked at this one. So let's see what this is about.
Snake Eye. For 600 years, our ninja have brought peace to our home. Join us. This is not your way. This is mine. Let's go. Snake Eyes.
It was a court battle between a New Jersey housewife named Mary Beth Whitehead and Bill Stern, a New York biochemist, and it became known worldwide as the Baby M trial. What ended in lengthy and highly controversial court proceedings all began in March of 1986 when Mary Beth Whitehead gave birth to a baby girl, a child that had been conceived through a surrogate contract. After the child was born, Mary Beth decided that she could no longer honor that contract and that to give up her child would be the equivalent of selling her child for $10,000, the amount agreed upon with the Sterns. Mary Beth joins us this morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
You're pregnant again with your 5th child.
Yes,
is that
I
right?
am.
How long ago did you have your last baby?
He's 10 months old.
He's 10 months old. And new husband?
Yes.
New life?
Yes.
Is everything in perspective now that all this is over?
Yes, my life has finally come together and I'm very happy.
I know you can't talk about the legality of Melissa, but I do know you have visitation. You do see her. Is that right?
Yes, very liberal.
Very liberal. How is she doing?
She's really doing well. This is like a typical divorce situation now, and it's no different than half of the children in the country for her. So I think that she's really come to grips with it. Naturally, she doesn't know anything of what went on.
How old is she now?
She'll be 3.
Has she been told about the surrogacy and
No.
Will she be?
Oh yeah, she will be. But it's something that will have to come much later in her life. It's not something that she could even deal with right now.
So I haven't seen this. It'd be interesting. Apparently she had a contractual agreement and reneged on it. She didn't want, this was, I don't know what year this is. This must have happened in the 70s or something. Did she say the year? This is New Jersey. Clearly looking at the video, this happened some time ago, but this is just one of the outcomes. This is the other side that I wanted to present. So for any man who's considering this, or as the scout you said, talking to your son, you want to mitigate the risks. It might be expensive, but and let me just add, I'll say, if any man is considering this, you want to make sure you also have a support structure to raise that child. So whether it's your mother, your aunts, your sisters, whatever support you need going into this, even before the woman is fertilized with your sperm, making sure you have your legal support. You make sure you understand her criminal background, her health background. You just need, and so some of the surrogate agencies they have an entire ecosystem for a lot of it, but after the child is given birth, and if the woman reneges like she did, you definitely need a support system so that you don't find yourself in an ugly situation. So let's see what else she has to say.
How about your relationship with the Sterns, or is that even important to you?
It's a lot better than anyone could expect. They have really come to grips with it after the battles that we went through. I think that we all made mistakes, and I think that, everybody was kind of functioning on emotions. So therefore, we were able to kind of put everything aside. And they truly love this little girl, and so do I. So we're all going to do whatever it takes to make this little girl happy.
Your children suffered a great deal during this. You write about this in the book Tuesday. Your little girl especially seemed to go through so much pain. How is she doing?
Well, she was really the one who, besides my own maternal feelings, I felt a very strong obligation to the other two. You know, so many people across the country were looking at that it was just one child involved. There was two others, and they were just as much a part of this entire
Ryan, your son
ordeal.
on Tuesday, your daughter.
Yes, in fact, when I was 9 months pregnant, Tuesday came to me and she was commenting on how heavy I was. And I said to her, well, someday you're going to be the same way. And she went, oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to hire somebody like you. So at that point, I had realized that I had made a terrible mistake.
Oh, man. Her daughter said, I'm never going to be pregnant. I'm going to hire someone like you. So, hey, look, the big exclusive, you were asking, what's the impact on children? That's interesting. That's one impact that her daughter had. I'm going to hire you, a surrogate. Forget that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like, look, the last one, the woman who's addicted to having them, and she said she'll keep on doing it. So maybe Great Britain doesn't have a ceiling to how many they can have. But I mean, I think what this woman just said is kind of hilarious.
I realized that I had made a terrible mistake, but I still couldn't verbalize terrible mistake. At that point, I'm going to hire someday you're going to be the same way. And she went, oh, I said to her, well, someday you're going to be the same way. And she went, oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to hire somebody like you. So at that point, I had realized that I had made a terrible mistake, but I still couldn't verbalize it because I didn't know what to do. And then when she came to the hospital and saw me and said, please don't sell my sister, I really felt a very strong obligation to everybody. And then I did try to let her go, and I lived one night without her. And it was the most miserable night of my life. I never want to experience it again. And when I went back to get her, the emptiness that I was feeling for that night before had totally disappeared. And, you know, we were all together. But, you know, through legal maneuvers and, you know, advice of attorneys, a lot of things happened that just never should have.
What are some of the things that never should have happened?
Well, first of all, they never should have gotten her. They got an ex-parte order that was absolutely illegal to retain temporary custody. So with that order, they were able to keep her. In most states, possession is 9/10 of the law. So
Did you hear that? So because she had possession, 9/10 of the law, she believes she had the legal right to the child, even though she had an agreement and was compensated to carry out this function, and felt like just because she changed her mind, that makes it okay. So this is the other side of it. And whatever the reasons, justifications, she had an agreement with someone to be a surrogate mother. That's it. This whole idea of, well, I can just change my mind really doesn't fly.
in most states, possession is 9/10 of the law. So
How do they
once
get an illegal order?
they had a judge who signed it, and the Supreme Court of New Jersey said it was something that never should have been done. From now on, if another case like this comes up, the baby will remain with its mother.
Until it's all sorted out?
Yes.
Okay, so they get the child. Now, what happens after that further perpetrated the mistakes made?
Well, from there, that's really the May 5th order is what triggered everything because it wasn't something that should have ever been allowed. And from that point on, I had no attorney. I tried desperately to try to find one, and I couldn't. And, you know, they had the upper hand. They had money, they had power. And, you know, I was trying to catch up, but I couldn't.
Okay, so now she's trying to play victim in this video. I find that amazing. A myth twist, that's a French proverb. The more things change, the more they stay the same. People have not changed. And we could, if we had footage from 2,000 years ago, we'd find that clear as a bell. And regardless of the language they spoke, we'd be in the same, we'd see same situations. And interesting, so you don't have a limit to how many surrogates. That's, wow, that's very interesting. All right, and do you know if there's an age limit? Here it's 21 to 45.
So therefore, they were able to keep her because after I finally appealed it with the Supreme Court of New Jersey, and I must say that the Supreme Court of New Jersey took a year to decide this case, and they did what was best for all parties involved.
You were very happy when you read what the Supreme Court wrote on the case. You felt that they acknowledged your pain, the pain of the Stearns, and acknowledged a lot of the mistakes that have been made.
I think they were very fair. In fact, I think they were more than fair.
How about the judge, Sorkow? You write about him. You would make any reader dislike him intensely. You would make any reader believe that this man predetermined your case 6 months prior to the trial and 4 months prior to the hearing.
He definitely did. I don't know why. It's not anything that he ever discussed with me, but he definitely did.
He disliked you, you write.
Extremely. And he was very unfair, and he was somebody that never should have been on the bench. And from what I understand, he is retiring. And I thought to myself, I don't know what happened to him because there's been, reports of how fair he used to be and this and that. I don't know why he did what he did, but I really feel he did the Stearns a disservice too, because he allowed Betsy Stearn to adopt this baby, and then the Supreme Court, because it was so illegal what he did, took it away. So then for a year, this woman thought that she was the mother of this child, and she thought that she was never going to hear from me again, and I was just going to be out of her life, which was probably a little naive of her. And now she has had to come to grips with Melissa having a mother.
You use the word naive. Let me use it. When you decided over a cup of coffee one morning to become a surrogate, were you very naive?
Extremely.
What made you
embarrassing to admit that I was. I have a sister that's infertile, and I have a few friends that are infertile. And I kind of jumped into this whole arrangement, not ever realizing what the final outcome would be. And I was in it 2 feet before I realized that it was something that was bad. I always felt that I had the right to keep her. I never knew that it was something that could happen. And as the Supreme Court said, I did have that right. It was taken away from me, but I did have that right.
Address the issue of being unstable. I hope I'm using the word that was used.
It was used by hired hitmen, by the Stearns attorneys, the guardian ad litem that was hired by the judge, who, he had made up his mind before I even walked in the door. And they were just, there was no truth to anything that they said. They just had to make me look bad.
The reason I brought it up is, I have to ask you this question. Were you stable enough to be a surrogate mother? And how much stability is needed to be a surrogate mother and follow through on the contract? Can surrogacy work anywhere?
I feel that nobody thinks about the child of these arrangements. I feel that, people are just thinking of themselves, their infertility, the mother who wants to do it. And this poor child is the one who's caught in the middle. And you're creating a vicious triangle for this child from the minute of conception. So therefore, she's going to have he are going to have extra problems that are different than adoption problems. So many people parallel this with adoption. It's a totally different issue.
But you say all this now, but while this was going on,
I knew nothing.
We were all feeling so much for the child. What prevented you from saying, enough, but I care, I love this child enough to back off?
There was many times that I wanted to do that. The old saying of Solomon, where the real mother gave in. But if I did that, I never would have seen my child again. Plus, I had 2 other children that every day I'd come home from court, and I was just being dragged through the mud and publicly humiliated. And I said, I just can't take it anymore. And my children and my husband are the ones that said to me, if you give up, we will never forgive you. So there was a piece of me that was between a rock and a hard place, because if I gave up, she would have been hurt, and my other children. If I fought, I also hurt them. So there was no happy medium. There was nothing I could do. And, I just felt that if I couldn't be a mother to her, then I didn't want to be a mother to the other kids. It was like taking away what I kind of valued so highly.
Yeah. So maybe this is an example of why they emphasize the psychological examinations and mental stability. I mean, what she just said is if I couldn't be a child to the other little girl, then I wouldn't. I mean, if I couldn't be a mother to the girl I gave away, then I can't be a mother to the others. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what she's saying, but that sounds very unstable to me. So these evaluations are really important. And that I see what you said, Myth Twist. Maybe a lot of women couldn't do it, but there are probably more women who can do this than we care to know. I'll drop one more video.
And, you know, I just felt that if I couldn't be a mother to her, then I didn't want to be a mother to the other kids.
Am I misinterpreting? If I couldn't be a mother to her, then I didn't want to be a mother to her children who were at home. So, and it's interesting. So she has children at home that she will neglect to go get children that one child that she already agreed to give away. Like what's this obsession with chasing something that you can't have and willing to neglect what you do have right in front of you? Amazing. Well, even do it to your own children. I think that's an amazing move. And how do you really check for that kind of mental stability? Well, it's kind of hard to hide that you're pregnant. I mean, she said earlier that her daughter said, "You're heavy. You're big, mommy." And she said, "Well, don't worry. One day you'll be the same." And her daughter said, "No, I'm not. I'm going to hire a surrogate just like you to carry the baby." So her daughter already understood this idea that her mother was she was a hired, uh, a paid hand, a hired. Her job is to hit those babies. I want to say hitman, hit woman. So a hired hand. She was a hired hand, hired to have a baby and walk. And she changed her mind and felt like it was okay. Now and this is in New Jersey, so it's illegal now in New Jersey.
It was like taking away what I kind of valued so highly.
Some people are very critical of the fact that you did this for the money. Did you?
No, I told the Stearns from the first day that I had met them that I would do it for no money. And that's something that they have never denied. The money was not important to me. To my ex-husband, it was important. He felt that in the beginning that if I was going to go through 9 months, take away from him, take away from my children, that I should be compensated for it. You know, people look at $10,000 like it's a lot of money. I think it worked out to be about 52 cents an hour. And after she was born, he also was very, very fond of her. And the money just repulsed him. He felt that to take $10,000 for buying her Tuesday's brother or sister was an absolute sick thing. I think that's what surrogacy, does. It kind of ruins the family system. And to create a new family for a couple who is empty-armed, you're taking away from another family. And I don't think that anybody has the right to do that.
So was it you, Myth Twist, who said you don't think most women can do this? There may be more women capable of doing this than you can believe. I know I repeated myself. Well, that's, I guess, by her daughter understanding that she was getting paid to have the baby, she understood that she was selling her child. So her baby understood it was her sister, and her sister was being sold by someone who bought her. Her mother was being paid to have a baby. The little girl apparently had some level of comprehension about what was going on. She just didn't like it. So I'm going to show this last video, and this is interesting. This is a woman who videotaped herself just after giving the child away. Hey, if you guys haven't smashed that like button, smash it. If you haven't shared it, this video definitely needs to be shared. There are lots of men considering using a surrogate mother. The topic we're discussing is, should men choose surrogate mothers instead of marriage? And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe to it. I like to bring rich, thought-provoking content that has you think from other perspectives. If you haven't contributed to me through Cash App or my PayPal or even the Super Chat, your support is greatly appreciated. And I'm going to show this last video.
Wait, you mean I can just produce gray hair by using a shampoo? Thanks, Just for Men. Sign me up.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I know I look disgusting right now, but I've literally been crying for the past 30 minutes. I feel like so many emotions, and if you guys are new, this is your first time watching my video, I'm a surrogate, or I was, and I just had the baby last night, and this has been literally the craziest experience that I've ever felt in my life. I wasn't planning on like filming this video. I just thought that I would, because it's raw and it's how I'm feeling. They just left with the baby. They took him. And I am like a little sad. It's just like crazy because, you know, like I was pregnant for 9 months, and I grew him in my belly for 9 months, and now he's gone. And obviously, like, I knew that this was gonna happen, not like surprise. I guess I wasn't expecting to have such a good relationship with the parents, and they're so sweet. If you guys watch my labor and delivery vlog, like, you can see how happy they were when they came in and saw him. And like, part of me is crying because I'm like also happy. It's not just like sad. I'm happy because I got to give them their baby. His name is Liam. And he is literally so cute and so sweet and so calm. If you guys watched my video after I had him, like, they put him on my chest and he was just chilling. And I'm gonna make like a whole labor and story time and tell you guys like everything about my labor, because it was crazy. It was a crazy, surreal experience, and I wanted you like a video explaining it. Aside from my vlog from my delivery, because that was literally just the craziest experience I've ever felt. And I'm just overwhelmed.
So I don't you know, she already has a child. And I find it interesting that, and maybe this is just like this moment of exuberance, right? She just had the child. She's overwhelmed, as she just said, and uh, perhaps had second thoughts, and she's sad. She's saying these are tears of joy also because she's going to make someone else happy. But there's somewhat of an emphasis on how surreal, and this is the happiest moment, and she's been pregnant before, and this one was different than all the others. And uh, I it's just another one of those. It's always better. The thing you can't have is always better than the thing you do have. It just has me thinking. But this is also to demonstrate that there are probably more women who can go through this than a lot of guys imagine. Now, I don't know if this woman is a single mother. Single mother. I don't know if she's married. This video was shot in December of 2019, so it's not too long ago. And, I don't know if she did like the last video and attempted to renege and get the baby back. I don't know if that happened. But in 2019, they probably had pretty strict legal guidelines and not much for her to back off on, to renege on. So I'm not going to play all of this, a couple of more minutes, but this is just the other perspective.
And I got to spend probably 5 hours with the baby today, and I'm so happy that I was able to and I just feel so much.
Hey, Myth Twist. Let's say that the husband and wife, that the wife is having miscarriages. So they may take the wife's egg and the husband's sperm and then drop it both into her. Or what may have happened in this case is they use this woman's egg and drop the husband's sperm in her egg, which may cause a much stronger bond because that child is half her DNA.
It just all happened so fast. And when we're in the nursery right now and we're taking pictures, the mom told me that we're family. And when I said bye to them, the grandma started crying and thanking me. And this was just the most amazing experience that I've ever felt. Being able to give somebody such an amazing gift, because my son is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And it's such a different feeling, giving that feeling to someone else, seeing someone else experience that. And they're so sweet. They want me to go visit them. They're staying in LA for a month and a half. And they want me to go visit them. And they said that I can take my son so my son can meet the baby. And they want me and my son to go to China next year and visit them. Honestly, I was like so scared of labor and having the baby. Like after I had him, it happened so fast. I wasn't expecting it to happen so fast. Like it literally.
Hey, Ms. Twist, I hope I answered your question about how they put both parents' DNA into her. It's much more complicated, and that is much more expensive. That could be like $150,000 on the high end, and in the low end, could be about 90,000. So, and yes, she's probably going to show up on graduation, right? That's my baby. But that's a rough one, right? So, and yes, like taking a Band-Aid off, right? You just rip it off. Where she's saying that that couple wants her son to come over and meet his sibling, and so this may make it tougher. I wonder if there have ever been cases where a attempted kidnapping or something like that. So like that last video I showed, Miss Twist, you like seeing those old videos, right? But if the woman just changes her mind. I mean, it seemed like this last woman I just showed you was like just on the edge. She just needed something to push her over to change her mind. And perhaps if her son would have said, "Don't sell my brother or sister, don't sell him," she may have gone down the same path as that woman from that older video. She just needed something to push her over. And so part of the criteria for a woman to be a surrogate mother, she has to have had a child already. So you guys saw one of the earlier videos I showed where it was a husband and wife, and the wife said she wanted to do it. Who's that big exclusive? You said the husband just put his hands in the air and said, "Hey, I'm not even going to argue. Just let her do it," even if he didn't like the idea. But their son seemed to be confused and had no idea what was going on. So I guess if you do this when your existing child is young enough, while it may be confusing and they'll figure it out as they get older, you may be less likely to get hit with a line like, "Mommy, don't sell my brother or sister." But you see, especially in this woman, I'm guessing she did the traditional instead of gestational. Gestational is when it's the surrogate mother. It's not her egg at all. It's someone else's being placed in her. And the father could be the intended father, or it could be some other guy from a sperm bank, a donor. But she may have done it traditionally, which means it used her egg, which is less complicated, less costly, and it's half her DNA. And she can be at graduation day saying, "That's my baby," just like you said. Now, I showed you guys the woman who was in Great Britain, where she said it was easier to do the pregnancy at home. So she said in the hospital she wasn't allowed to legally just turn the child over to the parents who were paying for it. But when she did it at home, she had like seemed like she had zero to no contact with the with the child. And she just let the parents take it, and they had to just stay for 6 hours, and then they were out. She said that was a lot easier to do, less attachment. Good question, right? Is it going to be weird having their child grow up to look like the surrogate mother? And also, the woman in Great Britain said two of her two of the parents who parents who bought her children. The children look like her son, so she must have done it traditional, right? So it's half her DNA. Yeah, hey, Myth Twist, it might seem crazy they can do that, but there's I was reading an article, and it's not guaranteed that it works. You can still have miscarriages, it doesn't stick. In the article, I'll drop it in the description. It's not even a guarantee that the woman's body will take it, and the surrogate mother has to take hormones. There's all kinds of things that she has to take. There are injections, there are hormones, there are pills that she has to take. So this is really complicated. Yep, big exclusive. That's why exactly. I think so. If you want to be a father and hire a surrogate mother, you definitely want to have a strong support system around you. And the woman who's a surrogate mother, you definitely need that. And that's why we're saying I'm not sure if she's married. Maybe she is, and she just doesn't have her husband there at the hospital. But it seems like she's, like you said, she's on her own in this. And that's clearly, you can see how rough that is on her. So, I wanted to give you guys more than one perspective on this. So, if you or a man that you know, I sound like a commercial, if you or someone you know have been in an accident, so if you or some guy you know is considering being hiring a surrogate mother, there are a lot of things to think about. It's not so cut and dry. And the Scout, I don't know if you're still here, you've spoken to your son to consider this. You want a support structure, you want the financial means to do it. And raising that child, you also need a support structure to do that. I lost both my parents, and when they died, at some point I took care of my youngest sister. And that was one of my thoughts, is that I was taking care of her as a single guy. And, I did all the right things. I put her in a private school that may have been in the top 3 best private schools in the country. And even though I did that, I still knew that I was raising her as a single man with no, with no woman in the home. We lost both parents at the same time. So I was very aware of that, not having a woman there to be part of the support structure, her example, to deal with certain things. I had to ask my sister, about do you want to be on birth control? What do we need to talk about this? Your menstrual cycle, like all these kinds of things I had to deal with. And there's not a huge age gap between us. There's enough of an age gap that I could enforce punishments. You're grounded. You did something inappropriate. These are the penalties. I did parent-teacher conferences. All those things. So there's a lot to it. But doing it as a surrogate, that just complicates matters even more. And when you look at this woman crying and may still want to be part of the child's life, these are just things that if you or some man is considering hiring a surrogate mother, he really needs to think through this and make sure you go through an agency. Don't try to do this on your own. Imagine doing this just on your own, and you're at the hospital saying, okay, the child's mine. This woman, with not having any legal repercussions, and what that woman from back in the day said, possessions is 9/10 of the law. This woman, instead of her crying, she could just get up, take the baby, and go home and say, what are you going to do? You have no legal recourse. And she has the baby in possession. So you have to make sure you do this properly. It's instead of just, paying a woman 10, 20, $30,000, under the table, go through an agency where all the proper things, her criminal record, her sexually transmitted diseases, her mental health, there's a level of enforcement, if she's doing drugs or alcohol, there's so many things that you want to be considered to make sure that woman is a healthy host for your child. And then in raising my sister, I could tell you it's really helpful to have, if you have you have aunts or your mother or older sisters or even, just a sister period who can support you and being able to interact if it's a girl. If it's a guy, probably a little bit easier. But most people don't realize also that not having a father in a house negatively impacts the little girls more than the father. That's a different topic. I did a show on that already. But I wanted you to look at some of the hardcore facts around hiring a surrogate mother. So many men are talking about it. And here's a sort of one thought to walk away with. If most men walk away from marriage and only deal with surrogate mothers, and you have a daughter, right? Are you raising your daughter to be a surrogate mother? And getting rid of the girls is a bad idea because they tried that in China and India, 30 years ago, and now they have a surplus of women. They have a surplus of men. They have 30 million more men in China than women. So women are exploiting that for one. So you don't want to do that. But if you have a daughter and men are just abandoning marriage and all women are just going to be surrogate mothers, will you be raising your daughter to be a surrogate mother? How do you do that? So it's just another thing to think about. While it's a solution, long term, is it in the best interest of our society? Are we better off with men and women actually being able to sit down and work things out? And for those of you who think you can't, I'm going to use this as a plug. If you have not seen my book, you need to read it, buy it, purchase it. It's called Here's Why You Can't Find Love, and it talks about how people sabotage relationships. And this applies even in your professional life or if you're an entrepreneur, right? So what are the mindsets and behaviors that we do in the blind spots that we have that actually derail relationships of any kind? And then it talks about how to make great relationships, not a good one, not a mediocre one, how to create a great relationship. And it's in this book. If you haven't read it, you want to. I'd like to see things work. Children do need two-parent households. Hey, the big exclusive. I'd bet you if there was no contract and the surrogate mother changed her mind and walked away, I bet you he owes child support. I bet you. And that's another good point. Because think about it. You had adult females raping 13-year-old boys, getting pregnant by him. As soon as he turns 18, she took him to court and put him on the hook for child support. So the courts have no mercy with men. And think about also sperm banks. Sperm donors are supposed to remain anonymous. And there are women who found out the identity of a sperm donor, took them to court, and actually was able to get child support. So, and with your question, I think that would be pretty easy. She'd just play victim and say, I felt tricked or deceived, and here we go. And yes, myth twist, right? Even if it's not your child and proven that it's not your child, you still end up paying child support. So absolutely, I would just think, make sure you have a contract so you can make this work. So guys, appreciate your support. I'm going to close this out. My intent was that this gave you additional knowledge, information for any of you mothers who are single mothers raising boys. And this is something that is going around in the back of his head about hiring a surrogate mother. You want to share this video. If you haven't liked the video, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, subscribe and hit that bell so you get notifications, and share this video. If you haven't checked me out on Patreon, I have some very interesting videos in Patreon, and I'll be back on Sunday with Straight Talk, where we will get straight to a very provocative topic and deal with it from a man's perspective. And this one today was definitely a man's perspective. This was Friday nights, YouTube and chill, kind of sit back, like talking about sex, but we didn't necessarily talk about sex, but we talked about pregnancy. So, and the intimacy of surrogacy and some of the challenges around it. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. I appreciate your support. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to everyone soon. Take care. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night.